The last heavy fall late yesterday at Barrington Tops has closed the main Barrington. The last heavy fall late yesterday at Barrington Tops has closed the main Barrington Tops Forest Road. 5 centimetres of snow has been reported at Pole Blue, 70 kilometres west of Gloucester. The road was closed yesterday morning. A minimum temperature of -7 has been reported from the area, with strong and gusty winds in Gloucester and on the tops. Forestry Commission officers will decide tomorrow morning, if there is no further snowfall, whether the forest road will be opened.
Racing wild
in the
spot,
past,
Mr.
Newcastle Greyhound meetings have attracted some of the state's best dogs, and now that number is expected to increase with the new Silver 7 series. 7 big meetings have been planned from August to September. New sponsorship has made way for the Aquatic Cup with more than $5,000 prize money, and it was this edition and more that the chairman of the Newcastle Jockey Club, Dr. Kevin Johns, announced last night. The new series will incorporate the previous Spring Carnival event and feature all bonuses. The first meeting will get underway on the 2nd of August with the popular Silver Bullet event, and will be the lead into the richest greyhound series outside of Sydney.
Well, the Silver Bullet series, sponsored by Carlton and United Breweries, is already one of the feature events in greyhound racing in New South Wales. Now, we are leading from that onto this other series of events which we hope will retain all those good dogs who don't actually manage to qualify into the final 8 for the Silver Bullet series. We'll still be able to retain them, still retain the interest of the greyhound industry, and improve the quality and interest of racing at Beaumont Park itself.
Right from the
When
kick-off,
Aussies
there were no
trampled the
big
Kiwis
pardons.
22-8 at Carlaw Park last Sunday,
But
the New
even
Zealand
in the
side lost the
quagmire,
first round
Australia
in the
made it
3-game
clear they
Test
intended
series.
trying to run the
But they've
Kiwis off
arrived
their
on the
feet.
mainland, determined to show the Australian side they're not the only ones who've got what it takes on the rugby league fields. The New Zealand side arrived in the city last night and will begin training today for the game against the Newcastle side this Sunday. They're here a day ahead of schedule, missing out on a game in Orange. It seems the weather just won't shine on the Kiwis.
Well, everyone that comes to Australia thinks it's a place of sunshine and flies and whatnot, but we struck a real bad snowstorm up there, and unfortunately the place was snowed out and the game got cancelled, so we were a little bit concerned about getting stuck in there for a few days, so we thought we'd better get out while the going was good.
Sunday's game at the International Sports Centre will be the 18th time the two countries have met. The Newcastle Games are traditionally a testing ground for the series games, and it's no different this year.
Our guys will be out there to try and create opportunities and score tries because they're all trying to earn test spots, and I'm sure that the Newcastle blokes will put on a tremendous opposition, so it should be a great day.
It's a fact that every time the NIB Falcons play at home, the Sports and Entertainment Centre at Broadmeadow is packed to overflowing. It's also a fact that in the past, overseas performers such as Torval and Dean have left Newcastle off their itineraries because we don't have the facilities to cater for a crowd of more than a few thousand in comfort.
Good ball handler, but
Falcons president Cole Stevenson says the Falcons have outgrown their present stadium and that Newcastle deserves more.
Yeah, obviously our stadium at the moment is not big enough to hold the people that we hope will come to see the Falcons over the next few years, and we're looking at an increased seating capacity of 4,000 to 5,000 people.
Newcastle's needs for an indoor complex go beyond just basketball. It would be a great plus to a myriad of sports and would also mean that international performers and acts could consider Newcastle. Locals point to the State Sports Centre at Homebush as the ideal setup. It has plenty of seating, modern facilities and can cater for almost any indoor sporting event. The basketball officials say that unless the government changes its attitude and supports a complex, it's likely the facilities would have to come from the community and the private sector. For the basketballers, the present setup has a particularly sad truth. If they make the finals, the NBL will not play them here because our facility is not up to scratch.
By a search plane about 9 o'clock this morning, 130 kilometres southeast of Crowdy Head. The Californian couple and Australian man on board are all safe and well. They say they're happy to stay on the crippled yacht until a police launch reaches them tomorrow. Meanwhile, conditions out here are poor, with winds from the northwest at about 40 knots and rain squalls continually hampering visibility.
Search planes checked on the condition of those on board this morning and later this afternoon. By radio, the crew have assured searchers that they are all right, though the yacht's mast was lost and the propeller is fouled with rope. The yacht should be under tow by tomorrow afternoon.
It was a battered Fandango berthed at Laurelton, south of Port Macquarie, early this morning. Richard and Helen Dinkins from California owned the vessel.
When we got
and
knocked down, I was
around the
sleeping
Pacific
back there,
for the
and you
past
can
5
see where
years.
the
Retired yachtsman Gordon Dunn from Sydney joined the team last week. Together they set sail for Hawaii via Tonga. But last Wednesday the trouble began. The vessel lost its rudder, but worse was to come when the propeller failed and the mast broke. The Fandango was floating helplessly out to sea without radio contact, but the crew wasn't going to abandon ship or give up hope.
Well, you just do whatever you can, huh? I mean, hang in there, right there?
The Fandango was located about 170 kilometres off Laurelton on Friday night. It was taken in by the police launch Doyle yesterday afternoon. It seems the 5-day ordeal has put a damper on the skipper's plans.
Change our plans and maybe dispose of the boat here if we can, and go back home and regroup and see if we want to get another boat or if we want to travel around some other way.
The accident happened about 2:30 this afternoon in King Street, Newcastle, at the intersection with National Park Street. Police say 18-month-old Christopher Nolan of Bulick Street, Merriweather, was being pushed over a pedestrian crossing by his grandmother. A car had already stopped to allow them across when the motorcycle collided with the boy's stroller and young Christopher was knocked unconscious. Paramedics worked at the scene to stabilise his condition before they took him to the Royal Newcastle Hospital, where he's now under intensive care. The boy's condition is described as serious but stable. His grandmother was also taken to the Royal to be treated for shock, but was not admitted.
Logos created by Alison of Year 6 and Lisa of Year 3 were judged by the Warimi Lands Council as best representing the heritage of the Warimi tribespeople within a simple design. They decided to award both girls first prize in the Shire-wide schools competition and will incorporate their designs to create the final logo. When finished, the logo will be used on the Land Council's official stationery and vehicle. For their efforts, Alison and Lisa were awarded didgeridoos. Alison's was made by a Dalabon tribesman in the Northern Territory, and Lisa's, which was hand-painted by Aboriginal children from the Newcastle area, was crafted by a Yarra tribesman in Victoria. A third design by Amanda Lands, a Year 12 student from Raymond High School, was highly commended and will be used as a T-shirt design. In another display of the Aboriginal heritage of the region, students from Gateshead High put the finishing touches to a tribal dance display they'll perform at the Hunter Region School's Dance Festival tomorrow. The 14 Aboriginal students have studied the language and culture of the Awabakal tribe who lived in the Newcastle area prior to white settlement. If you look closely, you may even recognise Mount Sugarloaf and some of the region's rivers in the authentic designs painted on the dancers' bodies. And if Alison and Lisa from Nelson Bay need lessons on how to play the didgeridoo, Clinton Beasley, who practices the art every day, could probably give them a lesson or two.
Hello, I'm Mark Matho, and tonight I'll be reporting on a demonstration to bush fire brigades of the latest Mercedes Unimog. Despite its size and its weight, Mercedes says the Unimog is an all-terrain vehicle.
Join Ray Denise and John Church for all the news tonight at 6.
From all parts of the world, right around the Anglican Communion, and we've been particularly looking at the question of what the kiddies use for things
and
that
the
are
Archbishop
material,
says the Anglican Church hopes to exert favourable influence in South Africa through its support of Desmond Tutu.
Around the world, there's great support for the work of Bishop Desmond Tutu, who is going to become the Anglican Primate of South Africa in a month or two's time. And I heard just yesterday from our Primate, Archbishop Gwynrod, that he's going himself to be there at his enthronement so that he can express personally our support for him.
Do you think that England is letting the world down in not taking sanctions against South Africa?
Well, I think that's right. I mean, I recognise there can be different attitudes to the validity and the result of sanctions, but the advice we are having from the black leaders in South Africa is that although in one way they may suffer from sanctions, yet in the long term it is the way in which they feel we can best support them. We're inclined to assume.
Closer to home, the Archbishop says he abhors the recent hangings of Barlow and Chambers in Malaysia, but will not be interfering in the political and judicial decisions made in that country.
Taken for granted without ever really thinking them through.
Juggling, stilt walking, miming and unicycling may seem nearly impossible, but according to the experts, these skills can be mastered with positive thinking.
If people can only say that they can do anything, and I think everybody can do anything they want. They've just got to put their mind to it. And generally people are saying, oh, I can't.
Do you have to be a natural or can you learn circus skills?
Well, I was very uncoordinated and I was far from a natural, as most people used to tell me. But it's just, you've got to just really work at it.
The circus workshops will be conducted at the Community Arts Centre in Union Street up to and throughout the Matara Festival of Newcastle. Classes are open to anyone who is not engaged in full-time employment or study. If you're all fingers and thumbs when it comes to tricks like this, then the circus workshop may be just the thing. Organisers say the emphasis is on clowning around, though there's no pressure to perform publicly.
Storm the Packers met at 8 o'clock this morning and in line with their Sydney colleagues were back on the job by 9 o'clock. The meeting supported the union executive recommendation for further talks on the Storm the Packers superannuation package and the oil industry award. Meantime, more service stations in the region were close to running out of petrol if the dispute had dragged on. Some supplies of urgently needed diesel fuel were delivered today, with further deliveries expected by the end of the week. But it may be several days before those stations that were forced to close during the week-long dispute have a full supply of both petrol and diesel.
A factor contributing to the increasing number of students staying on to years 11 and 12 in secondary schools is the introduction of the Participation and Equity, or PEP program at the end of 1983, according to the Federal Education Minister Susan Ryan. In the Hunter region, nearly half of all students in government schools now complete their education to high school certificate level. This is something for which the PEP program can claim some credit, according to Sandra Lloyd, chairperson of PEP in the region.
Yes, PEP can claim the credit for that.
Sandra says PEP gave teachers a chance to rethink what they were teaching their students to meet their education needs more thoroughly.
Well, PEP aimed to enable more students to stay at school for a longer time, but not only just stay at school for a longer time, but to participate in a greater range of courses.
The success of the scheme can be judged by the increase in the number of students staying on to years 11 and 12 since 1984 when PEP took effect. In this regard, Hunter Valley schools are ahead of the national average. The statistics show that the Hunter Valley has had a consistently healthy retention rate compared to the national average. In 1984, an increase of 4% on the retention rate was recorded, the year that the PEP program took effect. This increase jumped by 2% in the following year, bringing the number of students completing their education in Hunter Valley high schools to nearly half of all student enrolments. Students from Belmont High, who are today involved in a PEP-inspired accountancy course, said that the availability of courses outside of those traditionally offered has influenced their decision to complete their high school education.
This is the work that you'd be doing if you did become an accountant.
Why Hunter Valley schools have a higher retention rate than the national average is not something the State Director General of Education, Mr Windale, who was visiting the area today, can explain.
I don't know why. It's partly employment, it's partly the history of the Hunter in the past, where people would leave school, now they're staying. So it's a change. Why the Hunter is so good, I don't know. Perhaps their schools are so good.
Morning shoppers were witness to the accident in which this Mazda RX-7 ran into two parked cars and demolished a parking meter. It happened just after 9 o'clock this morning outside of the S&W Miller shop in Hunter Street. The 26-year-old driver of the Mazda told police she swerved to avoid a car coming out of the driveway on the opposite side of the road. In doing so, she pushed this white Commodore onto the pavement, ending the useful life of one Newcastle City Council parking meter. The Mazda apparently spun around on impact with a Commodore, clipping the late model BMW parked in front of it. The driver of the Mazda was taken to Royal Newcastle Hospital, where she's in a satisfactory condition.